Okay, welcome everyone. And if you're just getting here, if you want to write in the chat where you're coming from, that would be great. I'm so happy to welcome you to today's webinar on early childhood cooking in the classroom. We have two very skilled experts that I will introduce you to in a minute. And if you're not familiar with Mass Farm to School and you just happen to get to this webinar, welcome. Mass Farm to School works to strengthen local farms and fisheries and promote healthy communities by increasing local food purchasing and education at schools. And there's a lot of ways you can get involved with what we do. We have professional learning opportunities like this one throughout the year. Most virtual webinars like this. We have in-person opportunities as well. At the end of the slide deck, there's a link to our calendar for the year. And we also have other things that might pop up. You can learn about them by getting on our mailing list, and there's a link at the end of the slide deck for that. We have a lot of networking opportunities where you can meet other people who are interested in farm to school, both in the classroom and the school cafeteria. We do a lot of policy and advocacy work. And we also, I'm sorry, I'm letting people in. We also send out a lot of things via email, which is maybe how you heard of this. We have newsletter. We have something called Harvest of the Month, both for cafeteria and educators, which I also have linked to the slide deck. There's a lot of ways to get involved. We have, just letting someone in, we have Rebecca and Catherine here today. We have Rebecca, you want to wave? We have Rebecca Londonio, who is the pedagogista at Worcester Child Development Head Start program at Mill Swan A School. She has been an educator with the program for over 11 years. And we have Catherine Champiney, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist for the Worcester Child Development Head Start program. She has worked in community nutrition and food service in Worcester for the past 11 years with a focus on food allergies, pediatric nutrition counseling, and education in the classroom. So if you have any questions during the presentation, I'm going to also be monitoring the chat. Feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll also have time at the end for questions. But if there's something relevant to what you're hearing and you want to stop the presentation and just talk something through, please, you can also unmute and ask or put it in the chat. We're so happy you're here. All right.
Thank you so much, Dinah. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of cooking in the classroom in regards to all the areas of learning, and then we'll go over some of the process and some safety information. But cooking in the classroom is so important for children. It can help their social emotional development, physical development, cognitive development, language and literacy, science and math knowledge and skills. It really helps all areas of learning. In addition to that, it helps children who might be considered picky be willing to try more foods when they're really involved in the cooking process. So for social emotional development, in addition to helping them be less picky and more willing to try more foods, it helps them take control of the food that they're cooking and eating. It gives them a sense of confidence. When cooking, children can take charge of their own learning, and they can create and follow recipes as a team, work together, practice following directions, being aware of those around them. It involves listening, sharing, turn taking, self-regulation, everything that children are working on for social emotional development. And then when it comes to a close, when their recipe is done and it's time to try it, they'll feel a sense of pride and confidence. Then physical development, it helps them increase their fine motor strength and control, hand-eye coordination skills when they practice mixing, squeezing, spreading, kneading, shaking, mashing, tearing, and peeling. All those fun things that you do, especially with those fruits and vegetables. Cognitive development and language and literacy are also supported by cooking. They practice reasoning, making predictions, problem solving. They can use their creativity when they're measuring. Um, they'll come to understand that making mistakes is part of the cooking process, and they'll consider problem solving and reasoning before letting a spill get the best of them. They'll be exposed to written recipes, even if they might be the younger ones like we have here in preschool. They'll still have access to see a rich environment of literacy. They can practice drawing symbols for their recipes. In this picture, they're voting on what was their favorite food. Even if they can't write yet, they can still make their mark. It'll expose them to new vocabulary and definitely provide many opportunities for conversations. And for science and math, they'll use their senses to explore foods, communicate their observations and ideas. They can get to know the parts of a plant and the plant's life cycles from seed to fruit. They'll experience with the changing matter of liquids and solids when they're mixing their dry and wet ingredients. They'll be counting, sorting, um, and using a variety of measuring tools. So, knowing that it benefits them, now how would we begin? So, first, with children of this age, we would want to talk about the food that they're eating. In our program, we sit down and have group breakfast, lunch, and snack. We'll talk about the foods they're eating. Where do you think these foods come from? How does it taste? We can talk about the food they make at home. And then we introduce some recipes. A lot of the times in my past experience in the classroom, our cooking has always started with Play-Doh first and pretending to make food, and then it would move on and make bread or other foods. You can, also, you would want to talk about the measuring tools, read cookbooks, invite families to come in. And then you can also invite other staff and adults to come and help. When you're cooking in the classroom, it's definitely important to have enough adults there. And you'd want to have alternative activities for other children who just aren't interested. The most important thing is start small and have fun. No use crying over spilt milk.
Rebecca, is there just a question that's occurring to me? Is there a good ratio of adult to children, in your opinion?
I think it really depends on the children. Um, and it depends on the recipe. So sometimes in the past, I've been able to sit down at a table with 10 children and all work on the same recipe together. But sometimes you might want just 3 children to one teacher. It really depends. The educator who's in the room will know the children and what they would be capable of. So, in my opinion, it would be best to start small and then increase over time as they have more exposure and you get to know them better. So, when you're introducing cooking with children, it's really important to show recipes and talk about recipes. The best thing you can do is to prepare a large chart with photos describing each step. Sit down and talk about the ingredients. Not just talk about them, but when you're using them for the first time, children of this age really need to touch them and experience them before they can control themselves. So what I do sometimes is put some flour on the table and let them play in the flour first, and then that is discarded. And then we introduce, okay, now it's time to cook, or salt or sugar, whatever the ingredients are. I always have extra for them to use their senses to explore. You definitely want to make sure you have all of your equipment and tools and ingredients ready before you call the children over. And read the recipe aloud, talking about it as you go. and discuss the safety and sanitary measures. First, always washing hands before you start. Practice coughing and sneezing, turning your head. If you feel a cough or sneeze coming, make sure you cover it with your arm and turn your head, wash your hands. That's something that we have to do often when cooking. And then include them in the cleanup process. So this is just a list of some cooking ideas if you don't really know where to start. Stirring batter in a bowl, rinsing and straining fresh fruits and vegetables. Exploring fruits and vegetables has been really popular in our program because we always have fruits and vegetables with every meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or snack. There is one component. And the children every year have been very interested in seeds. And then that can stretch out to other activities. Other things that would get them interested is pouring the liquid ingredients, measuring, even just spreading butter on slices of bread. At the beginning of the year, a lot of times we'll have a family breakfast and invite families to come, and they can butter toast. They can make their own butter by shaking the buttermilk in a jar. Mixing and kneading pizza or other kinds of dough is always a big hit. Mashing potatoes or other cooked vegetables, rolling bread or pie dough, using cookie cutters, and once again back to the soft fruits and vegetables. We use plastic child-safe knives, but you can use a dull butter knife also, or a plastic knife.
Just want to give a plug for our Harvest of the Month program. When you said rinsing and straining fresh fruits and vegetables, if you sign up for the Harvest of the Month, we feature one crop each month, and that could be a great way to start bringing that crop into your classroom.
Some more recipe ideas: English muffin pizzas, pancakes, muffins. Applesauce is always a big hit. Smoothies, ice cream in a bag, butter, soup, even just lemon and lime water where they slice the lemons and limes. And then I put together this slide, so I'm glad you're recording it. These are just some of the books that we have found a lot of success with in our classroom in getting the children interested in cooking and sustaining their interest and also supplementing their learning. But there's many, many more books out there.
So one of the major setbacks, I think, for cooking in the classroom for teachers is funding. So it can be tricky, especially nowadays how food is so expensive. So we are fortunate enough to have a garden at each of our schools. So we like to have the teachers and the children go out to the garden and utilize those. And it's even better when they were, last year's kids, that they were able to plant in the garden and then they can see it all the way through, from seeding to the classroom and actually eating it. You can reach out to outside organizations. So in the past, some grocery stores have been willing to donate foods. We have the Regional Environmental Council in Worcester that has helped us tremendously with creating our gardens, starting them up, and providing us with fresh fruits and vegetables. And just using extras from a meal service. So if you have, extra, we always have extra apples. So you can make applesauce or apple cake or some sort of apple bread. That's always a fun one with the kids, just making the applesauce in a crock pot. Or if you have leftover bananas that have gone brown, you can make banana bread. And Rebecca already mentioned this, but involve the parents. If the parents are willing to come in, most of them are willing to purchase the ingredients themselves, and then they can come in and cook with the kids. Some programs I've heard, we don't do that here, but they offer their staff grocery store gift cards. So they give a certain amount to the teachers, and then they can go out and buy whatever they want for the cooking in the classroom. So if you could reach out to your administrator and maybe work into something like that, if they have funds available to do something like that, instead of, direct money, at least they're giving a grocery store gift card. And then I believe someone had the teacher that told me, it was a former Head Start program, and she said that they had to submit the receipts for it, but it was nice to have that extra. You can also apply for grants. The Farm to School, Diana can go a little more into it, but Farm to School has one right now, the Mass Fresh Grant, that's due in November, and some of those funds can be used for the gardening and cooking in the classroom. And of course, just purchasing it yourself, and that's what a lot of our teachers do right now until we can find the funding. So safety is also, I know, a big concern with teachers. I mean, with everyone, but that's one of their main concerns, like just worried about kids hurting themselves or just germs. And again, Rebecca already mentioned this, but just review the basic hygiene of washing your hands, coughing, sneezing away from food or into your hand, or walking away, using utensils. So, use spoons to mix, use knives, appropriate knives when you to avoid them actually touching you with their hand if you can. But those knives there, we did purchase those, and they are great for the kids. They're very dull, but they are plastic enough. They're a little better than little plastic knives that you buy at the grocery store. They're a little sturdier than that, and they also feel like they're they look like grown-up knives, so they like those ones. And they also have can openers that take off the sharp part of the lid. So it can be a little dangerous when there's, a sharp lid just sitting there. So those are nice to help. And just supervision is just key. Again, Rebecca already kind of went through that, but try to recruit as many adults as you can if possible. And the oven and hot surface safety, the general rule is you want to keep kids 3 feet away from hot surfaces. However, teachers learn to know their kids, and some teachers here we have griddles, and they'll let a child, flip a pancake or something like that. So, but again, you obviously want to make sure that there's not a whole bunch of children around. And if you feel like that child can do that, then that is up to you. So we do have some teachers that will let the kids do that type of thing. And so my piece as the registered dietitian is the teachers will submit their recipes to me, and then I will review the allergies in their class, and then we'll work together to make sure that we're keeping the kids safe and not serving any of the foods of the allergens that they have in that classroom. So if you don't have someone like that in your program, I just want to review what to look for if you're doing this yourself. So in the right side where it says the nutrition facts, I'm sure you've all seen that before. It's a general label. On the bottom, it will say the ingredients, and then it says contains. So the contains is the allergen statement. There's the big 9 allergens that manufacturers are required to put on their labels. So those are peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, milk, soy, eggs, wheat, and sesame was just added. So if any of your children have those allergies, it will either be in the contain statement, or it will be bolded in the ingredients if it didn't have the contain statement. But most manufacturers are putting the contain statement. If you had something outside of those allergies, you would need to finally go through the ingredient list and make sure that there's, if the child had a strawberry allergy or something like that, that would not be in the contain statement. So you would need to thoroughly read the ingredient label. Now, excuse me, sometimes in the left-hand corner there, the manufacturer will provide a statement saying it may contain nuts or may contain traces of peanuts, made on the same equipment as milk, packaged on the same equipment as blank. manufactured in the same facility. So those statements are tough because it's actually not regulated. It's not mandated by the FDA to put those on. It is volunteered information by the manufacturer. So if I have a child in a classroom that has a nut allergy and it does say may contain traces of, I say, no, let's just be cautious on that side. All our sites are nut free. So, but let's say in another classroom, there's no nut allergies and something does say may contain tree nuts, and may means, it may not be. So sometimes it's hard to find ingredients that don't have that on there. So I say it's okay in that classroom, but let's try to, like in the classroom that has a nut allergy, let's just avoid it. And sometimes, like at home, it's a personal decision as to what the family feels is appropriate for them, but we just like to be on the cautious side at school to keep the kids safe. And then that just orange label on the bottom. These are nice just because it flat out says made in a dedicated peanut and tree nut free facility. And then it will say like dairy and soy free. So those are great statements because then the 3 circles there, that one's the gluten-free symbol. It may look like something else, but that's one example of them. So there's no wheat in that product. They'll say, egg free or milk free. Those are all legitimate statements. And then that one in the middle is certified vegan. So vegan, if it does say vegan, that obviously there's no meat, but also that there's no milk in that product and there's no egg in that product as well. So that is pretty much it.
Oh, I want to add too, here in our program, we don't use shelled eggs either, but we get like egg substitutes, and it has to do with the salmonella on the shell, perhaps.
Yeah, it's the processing of the shelled eggs. So we don't allow any shelled eggs or raw meat. That's just, we avoid that altogether for food safety. But and just the general choking hazards, we avoid all the choking hazards that, Massachusetts has a list of foods that we are not even allowed to serve in early childhood or 3 and under. And so we do abide by that as well. Does anyone have any questions?
This is great because we have a lot of time for questions. So please, you can either unmute or put your questions in the chat or share a scenario that you would like to get some support in. Jason.
Yeah, hi. I'm curious if you would recommend taking a basic ServSafe food handler course, not a manager cert, but one of the $15 online courses, and then also possibly just for liability's sake, doing an allergen awareness certification, which is also pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean, that would be if your organization is willing to do that. That's awesome. We do that for our kitchen staff. So our kitchen staff is, but we haven't really applied that to our teaching staff. But yes, that would be great if they're willing to do it and could. That would be awesome. Especially if they don't have someone like a dietitian or a nutrition department, that would be very beneficial.
The education staff also gets a lot of information about the allergens at the beginning of the year during our first aid training, and that's really helpful. So at the very least, I would say have that for the educators. Those are the big ones that she was talking about: the nuts, the soy, the eggs, and milk even.
Do you want me to just go? I have my hand
Sure,
up.
yeah, Paul. Yeah.
I think this is the thing you just had on nutrition labels. I put something in the chat, but I figured I'd just mention it too. I did a class inside a cafeteria today where I had kids bring in labels, either from something they were bringing in from home or cutting out a cereal box or whatever it may be. A lot of them did it right then and there. They forgot to bring it in, but they did it from their bring in lunch, which was kind of fun. But I started teaching them how to read the labels. They had no idea that the first ingredient was the heaviest ingredient of the group, on down to the least.
Yeah.
And most of them couldn't read it, so we were reading some of the ingredients on it that they've never heard of. And what we were doing was we were Googling them at the same time, and I was sharing with them like citric acid that can be found in lemons and limes. So at the same time that we were going over the labels, we were also on my phone Googling some of it to get them some answers. And a couple of things we came up with was the high fructose corn syrup, how you'll list sugar, you'll list high fructose corn syrup, then dextrose. So some of the things had sugar in it like 5 times and just under different names.
Yeah.
So I was telling the kids, the kids that, did you eat this today? Oh yeah. I said, well, that's why you're wiggling the way you are, because you're just eating sugar, like raw sugar. So it was very, very interesting. They had no idea how to read it. They had no idea what to look for. They'd never been shown it. But I had one, I think it was a 4th grader at the end of the session we were in. They were coming like 4 at a time or so. And she said, this was the most interesting lesson I've had all day, she said. So I thought it was a win. At least you get one of those back, and it's definitely a win. So labeling is something they should know about. They should, maybe showing my age, but when I was a kid, we read the back of cereal boxes because there was either a prize to send away for or something inside, right? They didn't even have all the information on there. It was all advertising of some sort, but they should definitely turn that box around and read the ingredients. They would learn a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Paul, are you a classroom teacher or a food service in the cafeteria, or?
No, I am I'm part of food cores.
Oh, okay.
So part of AmeriCorps.
Yeah. Fantastic.
With the Marion Institute down in Marion, Mass.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
We have a question in the chat. It says, do you have recommendations for getting students involved in making food if you only see students for 30 minutes at a time? So if it's a short period, what could you do with them?
I'm wondering what the age group of the students are, but in my own practice, if it were preschoolers, I do some research first and see what could be some fast recipes. With my age group, it would be easy to do a song or a story for 5 minutes and then put like English muffin pizzas or just even cutting up fruit salad. What age group are they working with?
It doesn't, it doesn't say. Ab Morris, do you want to add to that? You can also unmute if you want, or you can put it in.
Oh. Yeah, I see. I teach K through 2.
Oh, for 20, is that you from 20 to 30 minutes?
Elena and I are working in the same district, so we're doing similar.
So it's K to 2, so your sections are like 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's good that they're a little bit older too, because they can be a little bit more independent, but it would definitely require some research first to see what would be fast. I would say toast and butter, shaking the buttermilk in a jar, creating the butter and spreading on toast.
You can do the toast or the English muffins ahead of time. So toast them beforehand so they're all ready for the kids too, instead of after that we'll save some time.
And then maybe some things where you have to prepare something on one day, like the dough, and then refrigerate it. And then the next time you see them, it's something that you could bake. Some cookies are like that. I would need to research more recipes.
I was thinking of fruit smoothies.
Perfect. Yes.
And I actually just made butter with adults yesterday. We shook that butter and we sang the butter song. And we talked about herb butter and maple syrup butter and things like that as part of a larger dairy lesson. You could do a salad. You could do a quick salad. You could do chopped vegetables and dip. Dip is fast, right?
Oh, yes. That and they love it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so vegetables and dip. I'm just thinking if anyone else has other 20 to 30 minute recipes that they have, please put them in the chat. Other questions?
Oh, there's the one also for ice cream in a bag. I don't know if anyone, it's very similar to the butter shaking, but it involves a lot of ice around the plastic bag.
Maggie just put pickling veggies. You could do a quick pickle.
Oh,
Mashing chickpeas for hummus. Ooh, we're getting some really
that's a good one. Yes.
saying things in the chat. So those are two very quick options also. I have a question. I have so many questions, but I don't want to, hog, but I have a question for reluctant learners. Like, is there a way that if you had a class of students, is there a way that you all encourage reluctant chefs who might just be a little more not as go get them,
We try as hard as we can to engage them in everything, but for the preschool age, we work with children 2.9 to 5 years old. And their attention spans are not that much yet. So they might not be involved in the whole process. You might be able to entice them to come over and chop something, or they might just want to do a mix or a pour, and that's it. But then over time, with exposure, as they see their classmates doing it, they might become more interested. And then, especially at the tasting part, some of the children who are so engaged in the cooking experience might be too scared to try it the first few times. And then there's some that wanted nothing to do with cooking and they will eat all the food. So it just depends on the children's personality. And I would just say, just be consistent in providing the offering, but not trying to coerce them, if you can see, because you don't want to turn them off to cooking either. Let them observe until they get comfortable.
I might add that if you give someone a paper crew hat or a chef hat, it could be a disposable hat, they become a chef even without touching any food, right? So all of a sudden now just call them chef.
Exactly.
Give them a hat or an apron. They may be reluctant, but then when they put it on, all of a sudden they're a chef. So
I just added some fast recipes. I'm thinking coleslaws, any slaw would be really fast. Cabbage slaws, apple slaws, kale. Also, like kale, you could do like the kale chips are really fast, but also like a kale salad. Kids get to like massage the kale.
Oh.
Some cranberries or something sweet just to sweeten up the kale deal for them a little bit. That's really fast as well.
I don't know if we mentioned it already, but juicing is very popular too. Even with the K through 2, I think that would be a great activity that they could do in 20 to 30 minutes. I got those juicers at the Dollar Tree, and they just peel and squeeze, and it keeps them busy the whole time. They can talk about the amount, measuring the liquid, what other ingredients should they add.
We have another veggie faces on rice crackers is fast. Pia wrote, I feel it is mostly about just exposing them to the process. I work with toddlers and preschoolers. Sometimes just having a child pop a piece of ingredient into the blender or crock pot is all they can manage.
Yes, I agree.
Anyone else have any scenarios they want to talk through or questions or favorite recipes they want to share? Last year I did Harvest of the Month smoothies. Pumpkin smoothies were a hit. Ooh, that's exciting.
Did you boil the pumpkins? How do you prepare those for a smoothie?
Pia, do you want to unmute and tell us about how you made the pumpkin smoothies? Oh, we use canned pumpkin. Some classes were dairy free.
I know a teacher of ours last year made pumpkin pie, but she microwaved and then
We did that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes dairy-free can get tricky, especially with all the nut and soy, but oat milk has been a big hit.
Patrice wrote, we have been using a pizza cake recipe with rice cakes. There's some very interesting ideas here in the chat. Does anyone else have any questions? It feels like we have an audience of people who are already doing this work. Is there anyone who has not started and needs support, like how to get started? Or
So we have a pretty well-established K-12 farm to school program. We're new to farm to ECE. But something I'm realizing with this webinar, we don't really do any cooking. And it's interesting because like I'm someone who cares a lot about agriculture, but cooking is something everyone's gonna have to do in their lives. So I guess more of a comment, but yeah, any tips on starting to implement it would be great. But a comment that this is a really great idea to pair with farm to school.
so Kevin, you don't do cooking in any like K to 12. It's not like a feature of your farm to school program.
Not that I'm aware of. Definitely not my organization, but we do partner with like our local university extension. And they have an agriculture in the classroom program that might do some cooking. I know they do a pizza food miles where they compare local ingredients to non-local and do the math for how many miles each of those traveled, and they make like little personal pizzas. They have another one where they go over like rations that soldiers received during the Revolutionary War, and then they have this little I forget what it's called. It's like a cornmeal pudding type thing. It's just cornmeal and water. It doesn't taste very good, but it's interesting to the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, Catherine and Rebecca, do you have a mobile kitchen, or do you have a kitchen in your classroom, or how does each classroom get to cook?
In our program, we have 4 different schools, and there is a kitchen in the school that all the classrooms would share. So usually most of the cooking is done in the classroom as far as putting the ingredients together, and then a teacher and maybe a small group of children would bring it to the oven. And then recently the program just purchased griddles, crock pots, blenders, rice cookers. So those are things that we can use in the classroom. Was there like a toaster?
Yeah, it's a food processor, and we bought like a toaster it's one of the bigger ones that can fit like a pizza in it, or their air fryers as well. But we were very fortunate last year for our program to buy all of that for us. That was a big piece we joined Farm to School last year, and that was a piece of it. That way we had a cooking professional development day where we involved our staff, and we separated them and we all made a different recipe, and that was a huge hit and then at the end we gave them a whole bunch of supplies to bring back to their centers. So most of it is done in the classroom unless they need to use the oven basically, and then they'll bring it to the kitchen.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And
and
we have
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I was just gonna say in regards to the supplies, if you're willing, I'd love to follow up about funding if you're willing to share how you were able to have funding for that, because
we have a guest who just turned their camera on. Maggie is here from DESE, who can talk a little bit about Fresh Grant. I'll also just want to add before Maggie talks about Fresh Grant that we had a really interesting workshop last year that was led by a teacher. All of our workshops are on our website, they're webinars, but we had a really interesting one on mobile classroom kitchen, mobile kitchen carts for classroom educators, because a lot of people, I was a history teacher for years and I did not have access to a kitchen. So this workshop is about how to build a mobile kitchen cart that can be shared between classrooms. If you're interested, you can, it's called Piloting a Lending, I think it's called Piloting a Lending Kitchen, and it's on our website. If you can't find it, you can always email me. But there's a recording from the webinar and also a step-by-step directions on how to build that cart, and also how to logistically like share it, because sometimes it's hard to share things in a school. So how to set up a system so that it actually will be shared and returned the way people have it. So check that out. It was fascinating and really helpful. All right, Maggie, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Fresh Grant? And thank you so much for popping in.
Of course. Thank you for having me very briefly. I have to, unfortunately, shortly after pop out to get my daughter from her early education program. So I'll be quick. But my name is Maggie Nowak, and I'm the local food system specialist for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in the Office for Food and Nutrition Program. So I work with a team of folks who support the school districts and early education centers that are running child nutrition programs, such as the ACFP, which is what folks on this call might be familiar with, and you might be running this program at your early education center. It provides breakfast, lunch, snacks, sometimes dinner or other late night snacks to your students and children in early education programs. And if you are a sponsor of a CACFP program or the National School Lunch Program, so if you're calling in from a school that has pre-K or younger in your district, you are eligible for a new grant opportunity that just started last year called Mass Fresh. It is a farm to school grant that is that folks are eligible for to apply for many, many different tools and resources related to the farm to school activities you guys are talking about today. So it can be used to fund equipment that's been described, which is fantastic. It can be used to pay for professional development for your staff. It can be used to purchase supplies, to take farm field trips to local farms in your area, or pay a stipend to a farmer to come in and talk to your class. So it's a really diverse pot of funding. The application is due November 17th, and early education programs do have the opportunity to apply to an abbreviated application if you are new to grants at DESE. So it should be a pretty seamless process, and I really encourage you to check it out if you're eligible and see if it might be a good fit for your program. We are really looking and highly encouraging early education programs to dip their foot in and see if this resource can be used to fund your program ideas. And if you have any questions about your eligibility or about the program, I will put my contact information in the chat, and it looks like Dana has already also thrown in some links and resources, and Jason as well. Thank you. So please do reach out. If there are any couple of quick questions, I'm happy to take them now. Otherwise, I'll probably jump off in a few minutes to go get my daughter. So thank you. Thank you, Dana.
Yeah, no, thanks for appearing here. Does anyone have any questions about the Fresh Grant while we have Maggie here?
I have a quick question about it. If a district has received Fresh Grant funding in the past, does that change their eligibility now?
Great question. School districts that have received funding in the past are still eligible to apply this year. It's not a restriction to the application process.
Great.
It's a very exciting grant, and it's a great amount of money. It's very exciting. So to really make farm to school, dreams and goals come through for a school or a district or a classroom. So I hope people take advantage of it. And if you have any questions about applying, please reach out to Maggie, because we really want all the people who want to do this to get help, get support they need.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for stopping in. I love Zoom in that way. Just someone just appears and then. Does anyone else have any questions about cooking in a classroom? Or anything they want to share? Rebecca or Catherine, do you have a favorite recipe or experience that you just want to share?
She has done so much. So
I can't even think. I do want to share there. I think the best thing to tell you is make it personal. My best cooking experiences have come from this little gold medal flour cookbook, ABC cookbook, that I had that when I was a child, and I just found it here on the bookshelf and I brought it to my classroom. And the children, I just put it in the dramatic play area. I didn't even use it for cooking right away. And they just loved it so much. And then I had that nostalgia too. We went through all the letters and they picked what they wanted to make. And the best one was the pineapple upside down cake. It was, it's not something I would have thought of making. It just came up and it was a great experience. They've never heard of it, seen it. And it was delicious.
And if you don't know what pineapple, I mean, if you were someone who didn't ever imagine pineapple upside down cake and you came across it in a book, it is such a strange idea. I could see why students would be like, let's make this thing called pineapple upside down cake. It's like, what is going to happen here? Well, I can tell people a little bit about additional resources. If you're not on our mailing list, please join it. You won't get inundated, but you'll get just the right of information on workshops, on things you might want to not miss. Save the date, March 22nd. We are having our 9th, I think, Farm and Sea to School Conference. This year, it's going to be held this year at Smith College in Northampton on March 22nd. And the theme this year is on climate resiliency and farm to school. If you're someone who wants to present something around that theme, we've recently released our call for proposals. Get in touch with me for that. We'd love to have people present, and our goal is to have more interactive sessions. If you are interested in our Harvest of the Month program, you can either get a cafeteria, elementary, and the elementary is K. The elementary starts in K, grade K. So there's a lot of early childhood lessons and books within that. So it's elementary or secondary or cafeteria. Each month you'll get a newsletter that is about a certain crop. This past month was pears. We have supplemental crops in the fall, which the newsletter is almost going to be there. It is collards, cranberries, and corn. And you'll get in each newsletter history. You'll get a very funny joke. You'll get book suggestions, curriculum, a quick hands-on activity you can do. And then you'll get an in the garden, if you have an outdoor garden activity, or an activity you can do in a classroom around that crop or around farm to school. And so you also get announcements of upcoming events. And those are all like, you'll get that newsletter. It'll have a calendar as well of upcoming things. And we also have a calendar linked on the slide deck of professional learning throughout the year. We have some really interesting topics coming up, so we hope you join us. And in the slide deck is also Rebecca and Catherine's email. If you thought of a question that you wanted to ask them, you want more support, feel free to reach out to them. I'm going to put my email on the slide deck as well. And that is what we have to tell you today. It's a very quiet group today, which is okay. It's the end of a teaching day of I know, of a long day. So we appreciate it. We try to support all of you, and we know that it's a long day. So all of our
Thank you.
sessions for our webinars are all recorded. They're all on our website from past years. You can find just a huge library of information. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well. If anyone has any questions, Dinah@massfarmtoschool.org. Please reach out. And I will say, if you are a teacher that has a lesson that you love, we love to publish people's lessons and give you credit and say, here's a great lesson from so-and-so. If you want to share your best practices, that is really helpful for us. So please consider that. Catherine or Rebecca, any last things you wish people had asked you or you want to share before we all head out?
I would say when you asked about a memorable cooking experience after the pineapple upside down cake, I remembered another really popular lesson that had a lot of vegetables involved. The children had been exploring vegetables all year long, and they decided to create their own recipe. And we allowed them to add any vegetables they wanted. And this was not the most delicious soup, but it was a great experience. So keep that in mind when you're exploring cooking in the classroom. It might not always be a tasty success, but it will be a success anyway. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for your time, and good luck. I hope you have some great experiences.
Same. And I love seeing it because I know some of the kids that they don't see it at home. They get a lot of, pre-made stuff. So I just love the kids doing it in the classroom. And it's a great experience just to observe as well. So thank you.
Right. So thanks, everyone. If you have any questions and you want to hang out for a minute, please feel free. And otherwise, thanks so much for joining us today for this conversation.
Thank you.